Okay. Tonight we're going to have a team presentation. This is the third of the 3 presentations. It's on the Internet of Things and Big Data. And I hope we have discussion with it. And then we can talk about any issues or anything you want to address after the team presentation. So I will give it to Robert.
Okay.
And I will mute.
Are we going to go ahead and start now? Okay. So this is myself, Sam, Manoj met together to work on this topic. So the Internet of Things and Big Data. And let's just start with some big numbers to look at. It's an article by Cisco, which I have the reference at the end, their network index they publish, that their prediction for mobile devices by the year 2020 to have over 8 billion handheld personal mobile ready devices, as well as over 3 billion M2M devices, machine to machine, GPS, asset tracking systems, device sensors, medical applications, consuming a combined 30 million terabytes of mobile data traffic per month. And that's just mobile data. Their overall forecast by 2020 is 26.3 billion network devices and connections globally. So that's both mobile and typical wired, wireless, PCs, whatnot. In IP traffic projected to reach 194 million terabytes per month. And that's some really big numbers. So I wanted to do a quick poll here. So in your, let's say in your home, how many connected devices do you have? Talking smartwatch, mobile phone, fitness band tracker, new and nifty connected refrigerator from Samsung, or a stereo system, a smart TV, even as ridiculous as they seem, those Amazon Dash buttons. I'm not sure if you've seen those. Those are small little clickers that order a single product for you. So let me just take a second more. Okay, I'm just gonna. So if you see that there in the corner, more than half of us here have over 5 devices connected in our home. I'd be curious to know how much of that's typical computer, laptop versus other devices. But so we see there's this growth of connected devices, and the Internet of Things, as defined by Gartner, is just basically a network of physical objects that contain technology embedded to communicate, sense, interact with themselves or the environment, and it communicates that to somewhere. It's simple. We've talked about it in some of those examples I just gave now. Big data, as a simple definition provided by Oracle, a holistic information management strategy that includes and integrates many new types of data and data management alongside traditional data. And there's many different companies that put out definitions of big data, but they all typically have these 3, what they call the 3 V's: volume, the magnitude of data; variety, which is the diversity within a data set, different types of data combined; and velocity, the rate at which data is created and analyzed. And a couple other guys throw some other V's in there as well, but that's a good summary of that. So let's start with Internet of Things. And in terms of business perspective, not just personal home, but those are businesses are selling them to us. But what is the Internet of Things and how is that utilized? So We have a number of variety of ways, whether it's practically speaking, devices and sensors that allow, for instance, an IT department to monitor the temperature in the server racks so they can know remotely how those servers are running, or who is coming in and out of a server room, part of that control of the systems for them. Data from various different Internet of Things devices and sensors can be a great example of what we can do and what can be done with a vast amount of data collected from various devices. Let me turn it over to Sam here. Do you want me to forward the slides, or you want me to just give it to you, Sam?
You can forward them if you want to.
Okay, just tell me when.
Okay. Here, my name's Sam. Hi. I just want. So here we have a chart. So just the things can range, as we were talking, from smartphones to networked cameras to temperature and door sensors that can provide data through some middleware, which can be specific IoT middleware or database software like MySQL or Cassandra. And that can kind of analyze the data and see the ways that we can use them in business processes and help kind of inform those decisions. Go to the next slide there. So in his Wired article, Patrick McFadden said it's helpful to think about the data in 3 stages, kind of when you're building it. It's the initial creation, kind of the data that's coming out of the devices. A lot of that's through HTML, but some is also through SNMP and other protocols. And then it's just kind of like how the data gets to where it's going to that middleware system, and kind of how it can be analyzed through there and through the database. And finally, it's how we use that data. So it's not just being put in there. And that's kind of what we'll go over with a lot of the big data and how we kind of will utilize all this data coming from the Internet of Things. And by bringing multiple devices together that may not even seem related, there's an ability to gather information from different sources and be able to manipulate that to get new perspectives and new business processes, and might even be able to develop new business models. Next there. In leveraging enterprise architecture, Mike Walker says you can actually look at industries both like the industry you're in, as well as industries who may not have anything to do with your industry, to kind of see the business models they're using and how they're using the Internet of Things and those kind of devices, and see how you can then utilize them from what you need, kind of because they're kind of doing the base research from bringing all those sensors in for themselves. And there are countless and unlimited configurations and combinations. You're really just kind of limited by how the databases and such they're coming into, and how you're able to kind of convert and analyze that data. And there's actually a few hackathon examples. A lot of our reading mentioned how hackathons and hackers are kind of a great source for Internet of Things and kind of making like the next big steps. An example of that is there's a San Francisco hackathon where a few different projects using the Internet of Things. They had Audio Argus, which is actually a predictive analytics system, totally based just on sound sensors. So using all that data, they're able just to kind of. And then they also have the Water Saver, which was a project that, by using sensors instead of just using preset timers to like 8 a.m. or something like that, it would totally depend on if it rained or anything like that, using these sensors to save some water. And then finally, there was an MIT medical lab hackathon where they used a whole bunch of different smart devices, invited 150 hackers to hack them, and in 3 hours they actually got a quarter of them. Not in the slide, but the good news is there was an IoT device, that like a security device. They put that behind it, and they actually weren't able to crack it the entire next day. So that's kind of something you can actually inform yourself with some of the security risks that may happen with IoT, because It's important that all these device sensors, because there's so much data, and that's just more points for potential vulnerabilities to come in, that they're tested to verify that the information that they're sending is correct. Otherwise, that data is going to be useless. And just kind of understanding how it's getting in there, so you can detect if something may kind of be off. So you understand where it's actually coming from. And the thing about IoT ecosystems are they're one machine, but they have multiple independent parts that may not even seem directly related to each other. And that's kind of like we said before, is why it's kind of important to understand how they come together, to understand where issues may arise and where vulnerabilities may arise. And like we said before, with all those that got hacked in the first 3 hours, especially like web and security cameras, they can come with a lot of their own vulnerabilities, just with bad HTTP implementations and things like that, that can cause issues with security with your own network and infrastructure as well.
Yeah. We all know that the data is fast growing, and we have like huge number of mobile and web applications that generate rapid paced data. So the recent statistics, what they say is the data is growing exponentially, and it is doubling like every other year, which is like really, really scary. So can you name any of the mobile or web apps that generate like huge data, which we use like in daily day-to-day basis? Okay, so I can name some like Facebook, Twitter, Google Maps and stuff, where everyone is using it on a regular basis and it generates like huge data. So what happens here is the volume and the complexity leads to a lot of uncertainty in the organizations on how they approach dealing with this big data. They are also puzzled with scaling on the infrastructure. How do they process this data, and how can they utilize and make use of this data in the best possible way? So big data, what it does is it gives a new dimension to the way the business can operate. And if they use the right information, they can enrich the business and see huge profits. So to support this, there are a lot of big data technologies which have come up in this decade. To name a few, like Hadoop, Elasticsearch, Spark, and Cassandra. So I'm pretty sure like you would have heard or worked on definitely one or two of these technologies. So these technologies are helping the way big data can process. Next slide, please. Yeah. So now, how do we leverage this big data? So we know that big data is presenting a lot of opportunities to understand the customers. For example, we have Amazon, where there are millions of users and they shop and they generate like large amount of data. So whenever we do a shopping online in Amazon, we know that we try to buy a product, you have a recommendation that is coming up saying that you can buy it along with this product. So that is a perfect example of how big data is helping the way business is being done. So that is based on the big data analytics with data mining algorithms, which is actually serving the purpose of doing better business. Organizations can incorporate big data initiatives in the existing processes by educating the business leaders and stakeholders to remove the uncertainty and take advantage of it. So the main stress here is the top management people who are involved should be really aware of what are the big data opportunities and how it can add value to their organization. And here the main role of enterprise architects come into picture, where they can be vital to spot the big data opportunities and bring it to the top management people to be aware of how can they enhance their business with big data. Next slide, please. And along with this, there are a lot of challenges that comes with big data initiatives. So organizations that leverage enterprise architecture in their big data initiatives should be able to identify the strategic business goals and priorities of the organization, then try to reduce the risk and maximize the business value. So traditionally known EA, they focus mainly on optimization, standardization, and efficiency. But now with big data into picture, the focus has to be more on flexibility of how to handle different varieties of data, how they can adapt and scale for the future. So that is one of the biggest challenges that is with the present organizations. And you have a lot of big data specialist roles which are required, and the gap is being like not filled at all. So new roles, everyone probably would have heard of it, like data scientist. That is one of the common terms that you can hear, where data science is such a demand, but we are not having enough talent to scale to it. So enterprise architects again are here like the bridge where they can try to understand what the data is giving in their organization and how they can bring together the business strategies, information analysis to provide the business leaders and top management in decision making to push towards big data initiatives. The last slide. So this is just a picturization where you can see different roles related to data. On the bottom part is data analysis and data science, where these guys they do analysis on big data and come up with some insights into what is present data. And the next level is data administrators who take care of the big technologies and see they are in secured place. The main role here is for the enterprise architects to take what insights are being given by data analysts and scientists in the bottom level to take it to the next level where you can understand the business outcomes of using the data and help the top management to invest in those business opportunities and grab the initiatives to enrich their business operations. Yeah.
To recap, both as you could see, both the Internet of Things and big data has a lot of convergence. So we recommending educate your business leaders regarding the potential benefits of both initiatives, Internet of Things and big data. They are separate, but they have a lot of connection and interconnection between both parts. As Sam brought up, investigate how other organizations, both similar to you and different, are successfully using both those things, how they use them in their businesses and how they're applying them, and see if there's any lessons that can be learned from that. For both cases, for Internet of Things and big data, the value and effectiveness of initiatives to implement those have to be tied directly to measurable business outcomes and results. Otherwise, you just have data for the sake of having data, and you have sensors for having the sake of sensors, and you're not gaining anything as a business from those. Another important takeaway is as you move forward with plan to implement either big data and Internet of Things initiatives, you need to look at the scope of that, because typically the amount of data, as we've seen, that's generated by these programs is vast, and unless you're prepared for that and knowing how to handle it, even getting those new roles and into your organization to handle that, you're not going to be prepared. As Sam brought up in the example of the one hackathon, there's a lot of security concerns and privacy regarding both Internet of Things and big data, whether it's what kind of data is being collected from the Internet of Things devices, or the amount of data and how it's being retained and what that data is being used for. So those need to be evaluated carefully as part of the implementation plan. And as we've sort of been saying all along, big data is really an inevitable result of the Internet of Things. All those connected devices and sensors and just generate massive amounts of data compared to what, say, 10 years ago even would have been what we would have thought is normal. If we're planning on doing Internet of Things innovation in our company, we need to expect to also be prepared to handle big data, process and analyze it, and have them both tie in hand to hand. A great example of that, I mentioned it to Manoj and Sam the other day, was from Boeing. There was an article we found that talked about how in each airplane Boeing manufactures, they have 8,000 sensors capturing terabytes of data over the course of a flight. And if you calculate that out of how many Boeing jets are in operation, you can just look at the scope of the data that's being generated from a business opportunity there, whether that's maintenance sensors, whether that's flight paths, whether that's all kinds of data that could be collected from that example too. So that's basically Internet of Things and big data. And here's the references we had that we here. If you want to check out any of those, a lot of very good information and very eye-opening in the scope of things.
I think we're opening up to questions right now.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
And this is to the class. How many of you in your organizations are dealing with big data?
As I put in my note, or in one of the discussions, the client that I'm working with is kind of on the edge. They're trying to figure out things mostly about the customer. But on other projects that our company works with, they're working with that as well in a wide variety of ways. I heard the train sound in the background somebody was doing, and one of our clients is a train a train company, and they are using big data to track various things that are running on the tracks, and so that's kind of interesting. And we also have some that are involved in food production that are capturing a lot of the information with the devices and working on trying to aggregate that, which kind of leads to a question that I have, but I'll let somebody else comment on how their companies are using it.
Come on.
My company doesn't have like a huge space or anything. So I have worked at places in the past where we used it for a lot of our security with door sensors and temperature sensors and things like that. Kind of because we're moving into like a new campus and stuff. So that was really interesting dealing with those and kind of how they all worked together. But like right now, what we do is we do a lot of like credit applications, and while we don't deal with a lot of the information like personally
Identifiable. Yeah.
We do deal with like the approvals and stuff like that because that helps us troubleshoot. So we kind of do deal with kind of getting all the data coming in from the kiosks for approvals and such like that. So and dealing with kind of keeping that around and using that as like a troubleshooting and analytics tool.
Thanks. Anybody else? Gary, Jill, Marie?
Well, I have to say that we're just starting to take the data from our presses for making our parts in our automotive industry to actually start. So we haven't really gotten into it yet. We're migrating to SAP, which is going to allow us to do a whole lot more than we've been doing with our other ERP system.
My current company probably could use that, but they don't. As we manufacture a lot of equipment that goes into the newspaper industry, so you would think that's a great place for that kind of data gathering, but it's not a big priority, unfortunately. I wish it was. My previous job, I worked for Xerox, and all their copiers, whether it's small office, copy shop, large print facility type things, those devices are all connected. They feedback usage, sensor readings, toner, how much toner is used, how many pieces of paper went through the machine per minute. I mean, the amount of data that's collected from that. Some of it's for billing purposes, but at the same time, some of it's marketing, used for marketing purposes as well, to know who's doing what in what markets and what customers are utilizing what pieces of equipment.
Interesting. Marie, thank you for your chat response. She says, I don't directly deal with big data, but my company is working on ways to analyze big data and use it to refer relevant products and services to existing customers. Great. So, my big data, the ability to harness big data is the big challenge. It's not, the challenge isn't collecting it, is it? It's the harnessing of it. And so I have a general question to anyone, Manoj talked a bit about, touched on the role of enterprise architecture and big data, but I'd like a bit more of a discussion. Any ideas? Anybody interested in playing that role? What kind of skills do you need? I mean, do companies realize they need enterprise architects to help the data scientists?
Well, I think one of the things I saw through doing our research we did for this in the topic summary paper was that the scope of data is potentially immense. You know what I mean? It's not just, it's hard to put I can't imagine what 194 million terabytes a month of data flow.
I know.
It's not fathomable, but
no.
It's a complex system, and unless there's good guidelines and rules and strategies around that complex system's just gonna be chaos, not organized and business positive.
Well, and one of the other things that I think people are aware of, but maybe doesn't come up to the top very often, is when you talk about that exploding number of devices, we're quickly running into physical limits as well. So right now, most of the internet is really running an IP version 4, but to support the number of devices that are coming, we've got to get the IP version 6. And there's challenges with how do we get there? How do we let some of our stuff be old and some of our stuff be new? And those are gaps that have to be bridged in a sensible way. And enterprise architecture would definitely have a place in bringing that to the forefront and helping develop solutions. And then the security parts that they mentioned as well are definitely fit into that category. We need people creatively thinking about how could people misuse the data as well as how can we valuably use the data.
Definitely.
This is Jill. I was thinking about from the business perspective of the quantity of big data. And it seems to me like if the enterprise architects are working with some of the business architects to identify areas in particular where we need the data, or where the data aligns to certain strategies that might help cut down on how large it could potentially be.
Maybe this is the time for my other question then that I had alluded to earlier. In the presentation, it said the value and effectiveness of IoT and big data initiatives need to be directly tied to measurable business outcomes and results. Some of what I tend to see in the big data area right now is that companies are trying to collect a lot of information almost for the post problem type of analysis. So I get to a end result that wasn't what I wanted to do in a manufacturing process. Can I go now back through the process and see the different types of things to figure out what are the good ranges and what are the bad ranges in a predictive kind of way? So, sometimes it seems like you have to kind of guess what the value is and then prove what the value is rather than being able to say up front, this is what the value is. And I was wondering what anybody else's thought on that was.
Don't you still have to have an end goal in mind? Otherwise, you're just collecting data and you don't know if it's useful or not. So there's got to be some kind of boundaries established to say, okay, it's not just we want random data from these pieces. It's we want this type of data because it may be a potential, but we may want to look at XYZ and we want the data to back it up. I think you'd sort of have, that's a lot of what we saw was that it's like you want some of that to guide your decisions. Otherwise you're just shooting a shotgun and hoping one of the pellets hits something.
And I don't disagree with that. I think you have to have an idea what you would like to get to. I mean, in a manufacturing process, where you would really like to get to is 100% production with zero defects. And so you have to guess, in a sense, what through the line might make a difference. Like in food, temperature variance in different parts throughout the production line, or even some sort of an interruption in the line where it stayed in a particular place longer than expected. So I agree. You got to have an idea where you're headed, but I don't know whether you necessarily know which parts of data might not be valuable or be valuable.
And since it's relatively easy to collect.
That's true, but I mean, I guess still, how do you know you haven't spent 6 months collecting the wrong data?
Right. Right.
And sometimes you will have spent 6 years collecting the wrong data.
But I guess that's where the cost benefit maybe comes in, from the standpoint of if it's easy to collect and if it's not too expensive to store, right, is it better to err on the side of too much or to risk the side of too little?
Well, the thing is the security concerns of having, because like kind of every IoT device you add is another vulnerability potentially. So I mean, right, you have to think about it like that too. You kind of don't want to add just as many. I mean, you can take precautions too, like putting them all on a subnet so they're all by themselves. But it's also worry about having so much data and being able to monitor for fraud and misuse and stuff. And it can kind of be hard if you have so much data and sensors that you don't even really might not even, like, without really analyzing data, understand it, like what's coming in and what might not be right.
Right. And then that security thing. You have data you don't even realize you have. It's not secure. You get hacked. You get in the news. No.
Yes.
Well,
right,
you would also have to look at the problem is most of these items that you're dealing with are not sophisticated to carry their own antivirus. They have to be protected by some kind of perimeter protection. So if somebody gets to one of your thin clients and hacks into it, he has access to your network and it has no way of really stopping it.
Yep. What was the example a number of years ago? Someone hacked a PC speaker to send sound signals to another PC and basically give it basic commands. I mean,
Well, I mean, there's a few basic, like there's either a search engine or a few basic like search things you can put in Google that'll pretty much show you like all the available open webcams that don't have like a username and password on them from anywhere. So I mean, that's a vulnerability that literally you could just like on a weekend uncover and look at. But if you had like more insidious purposes, you could be, trying to connect to other things on their network.
I don't disagree with any of that.
It's pretty scary, huh?
It really is. I will say though also that one of the advantages that's coming out kind of interestingly out of big data is companies that are willing to share and build on their data. So, I mean, we have the IBM Watson series of stuff that's coming out that's adding lots more intelligence capabilities. And if you want to go play with some interesting stuff related to facial recognition and analyzing people's faces to guess things like age and mood and stuff like that, the Microsoft Cognitive services are real interesting. And they have little demos on their page where you can upload a picture and do some things. But the better that they get at that through all of the data that they're collecting and all the places that they're collecting it, you can benefit from that as well in your applications if you want to make use of those services. So lots of sharing and lots of opportunities coming out of big data that's even bigger than a particular enterprise.
Well, that's encouraging, isn't it?
Well, eventually everyone's going to know everything about you. So,
So just give in now. Yeah.
Give in now. Exactly.
Well, that's what the younger generation has done. That's their attitude. Oh, well. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole idea of these privacy documents that they're always passing out everywhere you go, telling you that we don't misuse your data. It's just a way of making the lawyers feel better because everybody knows they have no privacy.
That's for sure.
Any other comments? Good discussion. Oh, here Marie has one. Another thing that companies need to be cautious of is collecting and storing data items that are federally regulated. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain times where if just because you're collecting the data, you have to store it for a certain amount of time, and just getting audited just for the fact that you even had it in the first place. Now you are responsible for keeping it and maintaining it.
And I was just going to say, the other downside to that is, as we all know, data never really disappears from a media. So when somebody disposes of that little whatever piece of equipment, some data is probably still on that flash memory or whatever type of storage they have there, and somebody can get on there and get information that's supposedly deleted.
I was going to add one other comment to Marie's as well about remembering if you have an international country, there are even additional things related to the fact that different countries have different laws related to how data can move across the border. And that can be very interesting. And that's a real opportunity for enterprise architects to make sure that they're pulling in the right people and providing the right value.
Yeah, great point. Europe is much different in their privacy
They
requirements.
definitely are.
Yeah.
We're part German, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Very different. Good point, Marie. Any other comments? All right. Well, thank you for this presentation and the discussion. A good way to end our synchronous session. Now, I think I'm pretty much, let's go over some housekeeping things. Let me see. Just give me a second here. I am up to date with my grading except for what was turned in for this week. And I have this latest topic summary and presentation to grade. So I will get that done this week. And then we're looking. So if you haven't looked at your grades, everything is current up until what you turned in on Sunday. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. And then coming up in week 12, you have, let me get there,
The Walmart.
the Walmart, which should be no surprise. And unless you change your mind on exam 2, it's been canceled.
So one question on the Walmart project.
Mm-hmm.
So is that, it says the 9th, which is, it's due next Tuesday. Is that correct?
I have August 7th on mine. Let's see.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
We've had plenty of time to work on it. Let's see. Due August 9th. Well, there's a discrepancy, so I will keep it at August 9th. You'll all be marked late. I'll change that. Let me see. August 9th.
Yeah, because I had seen that it was different in the two places, so I was trying to figure out what was the right date. So
we'll keep it at August 9th, and I'll go into module 12 now and make that agree.
I say yes, please do that, because if you don't, the computer will lock the door on the 7th.
That's right. It will. I'm doing that right now. Okay. August 9th. Okie doke. The now yeah, okay. So where you're going to submit it is in lesson 8. And that was all, that due date was that's August 9th. So that's where the description of the assignment is. And so that's also where the where you submit it. And you can submit a file or a website URL. However, you want to do it. The sooner you do it, the sooner I will grade it. So
I did notice you asked about the artifacts. You said to include those as well. So if we do a website, will we put those as like a repository, or where would we put all the artifacts?
you can put links to them.
Okay.
That will work.
so whatever we find, just a link to that document.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And then I'll just take that and do some clicking, and that way you won't have to worry about file sizes and
That'll work.
yeah, that's the easiest and the surest way. One thing I would like to ask you to do is complete the SRT Ease for this summer class. If you haven't already, I would appreciate that. It looks bad if nobody completes them. So if you do me a solid, and as the kids say, if you do me a solid and complete the SRTEs, I would appreciate it. It's anonymous. I don't see any results until after the grades are submitted, of course. And I value your feedback. So do you know where to find those?
don't think so.
Really? Okay, so
I thought there was an email that came.
well, I get an email,
I
but
know they show
what
up in
I see
Angel.
is different.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know they show up in Angel on the home page for the course. I'm not sure about Canvas.
Right. Can somebody check the email that you received? Because
Yeah, here it is. It said login. Here, I'll post it. It said that's what the email step said to do.
oh, okay, rate teaching. Okay, that's where okay, so there you go. I've been on that site. That's where I get results when they are ready. Oh yeah, that's where I can see what yeah, okay. I will complete a sentence shortly. That is where I can see the completion rate. And so now, two people, no, one person out of 8 has completed the SRT Ease so far. Kudos to that one person, whoever you are. Thank you. And if the rest of you could sashay your way over there, it won't take but a minute or two. I would appreciate it. And I'll nag you until I see that I can just see how many have completed it. So thank you in advance. Well, I have hoped that you have gotten good information and a good foundation out of this course. And I hopefully will have you in class again. And I hope you signed up for 872 in the fall. And I wish you all the best. The summer, it's been a good summer, I think. So that's about all I've got, folks. So carry on, get the Walmart assignment in. Test 2 has been canceled, and I think we're all looking very good here. I appreciate you attending the sessions. I think having them every 3 weeks approximately worked out pretty well from my perspective, but I'm interested to hear how you felt about it. So, all right then, I think we're done here.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a good evening.
You too, Marie.